Hi guys, it's Amy and you have found Amy Loves Crochet. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate you. I wanted to share with you that I finally got something created out of my Grandeur yarn by Willow. As you may or may not know, I kind of ordered this yarn by mistake. There were 6 of them in a group. It was a multi-pack group. And from the photo, like they just showed the bottom of these cute little skeins, and I thought that they were like normal size hanks, not skeins. I thought they were like normal size hanks, and they're not. It's 7 bulky yarn, jumbo. You can see here, it's got this skein or this hank happens to be called Eden, and it's got lots of nice blues and all these different colors. You can see sometimes they're twisted together, and sometimes it's just a solid color. And so there were 6 different colors, and you could get them each individually for one price. And then they had a smaller multi-pack, I think of 2 or 3 that you could buy that was a little bit less than just buying one skein. And then by buying 6, it was this great savings and these cute little hanks that I thought I was getting. So it was kind of funny when I opened the box. I'll link that unboxing down below so you can see my reaction if you like. But these are really great as something different that I never worked with before. And so I thought that was a great opportunity for me to kind of step out of my box, because I've seen 7s, but I never really bought them because, you know, that's just so out of my comfort zone. But like I said, these are a size 7. It's 70% acrylic and 30% wool. It suggests a 15mm Q hook. And now I've got this Q hook. And I showed you this in another video where I actually kind of started to work with the yarn a little bit, and I'll go ahead and put that clip in here. And then I started working on I went ahead and opened up one of these skeins. If you, this was a Herrschners order that I got, something that I didn't know I was ordering. You got to read the little instructions or the little descriptions a little bit better than I did on this night. But I wanted to start to use it, start messing with it, figure it out, whatever. And I decided to, you know, when I opened it and put it on my Swift to take it out of hank form, I decided why even try to ball it up, because my ball is not made for a size 7 yarn. So I'm just going to leave it on my Swift and work it off of that. So let me go ahead and show you. Hold on a second here. So I wanted to show you when I dug into this, because it was such a wackadoo thing for me. You know, I purchased something that wasn't what I thought it was. So I have to figure this out as I go. It's a 70% acrylic, 30% wool, jumbo size 7, and it recommends a 15mm Q hook. The colorway is Moorland. All right. And this is the color. You can see here, it's a very beautiful changing color yarn that's, you know, mixed along the way. And so my Q hooks that I have was one from my mom's stuff. This is a boy hook. It doesn't have a date on it. I looked around real well. Out of Chicago. I don't know how old it is. But here's this Q hook. And then she has a set of these that are absolutely gorgeous. And I never thought, you know, how accurate could they really be? So here's the little engraving on each. I'm trying to get you to see it there. See a little Q that's scratched into the hook there. And so I thought, okay, let's take a look at those and see how similar they are. So of course the first thing that we notice is the size of the head that's going to be pushing through and pulling through. Like, that can't possibly be the same. So I'm not sure, you know, look how skinny that is. How is this fat 7 supposed to fit into this little hook? So there's like a love of what this one can do based on how it pulls the size, you know, the size there that's going to pull the yarn versus this one. And then there's the love for this one, because the size of the head, you're going to make a bigger hole than this one. So I started to work them up a little bit just to kind of see, just to play with what I was looking at here. And this one is, I just did some single crochets and then went in the second and came back over to keep it simple. And that's done with this one. And it was really hard to not pull extra fibers or leave fibers behind with both hooks, actually. And this one is then with this one here. So if I am going to work this up, which no, when I do work this up, I'll probably use this one because it, you know, makes the hole so much bigger. But now that I've been to Fiber Fest, this looks like the batting that they use to make the yarn. Like, am I supposed to spin this, or is this the finished yarn that I'm supposed to work with? So that was just kind of goofy for me to figure out a little bit. I still want to look at doing some finger crocheting because I haven't done that before. So I'll take a look at that and report back to you on how this goes. What I ended up doing was just finger crocheting. And so I really thought that I was getting into something a little bit more technical, but it's really not. It's just what you think it would be. I'll show you here in a minute, but you just use your fingers like they are the crochet hook. And so what I did is I started with this color here, and you can see how beautiful it's worked up. This is just single crochets, and this is the bottom of the blanket. I always show you upside down. I don't know what my problem with that is. And then this was the next color called Abyss. This one is called Moorland. This first one is called Moorland, and it's really, really pretty. It's got kind of these peachish, kind of pastel-y purples and greens. And then you get into this one. It's called Abyss, with all the different shades of gray. It's kind of grayish blue. And then I picked this one up, and it was called Estuary. These blues and greens, it's Estuary. And then this last one was called Melanie. And it's super, it's like sherbet to me. It's like rainbow sherbet. It's super orange and pinks and this like lighter color here. So the blanket that I made is 4 skeins, and it is about 32 by 26, and it is so heavy. It continues to fall off my lap, and I'm sweating just holding it, you know. So I don't know if this would really be used as a blanket or for more of like just a mat. And I don't know about a walking mat, but just like a lay your baby down on the blanket on the floor kind of thing. I don't know. It's super thick. Oh my gosh, I wish you guys could feel this. And the weight, I should probably weigh it. Well, if these each weigh, let's just do math. If these each weigh 10.5 ounces, and there's 4 of them here, so we've got 42 ounces. It's heavy, but I thought it was a lot of fun, and I didn't know, you know, like I say, I've got these 2 other colors left. This one was really kind of my most favorite, I think. This one's called Canyon. And so I thought, well, maybe I won't use either of these. Maybe I'll just leave these on my shelf for now and come up with something either individually or together later on. But you can see that it's just super duper fuzzy. Can you see that? I'm sure you can. And so working with either of the hooks, I really experienced quite a bit of pulling extra strands or missing extra strands throughout the crochet. So by pulling it with my fingers, you could feel it a whole lot more. But I'll tell you what, my whole forefinger and thumb are super duper sore. I finished this in just about an afternoon. I think I started it, I got off work, started working on it maybe about 2 o'clock. And just after dinner, I was finished. So normally when you do a magic knot to change colors, you can really kind of hide it in very well. But I was finding that, maybe I can feel it better. Like here, where we tie them together, it's a big old bunchy. It's not as easy to do the magic knot and pull them together like I've done before. You know, anytime I join yarn, that's how I do mine. You tie a knot, and then you pull them together, and the 2 knots come together, and you're not gonna undo your work that way. And so a lot of times you can really hide that very easily in the work, but in this case it feels very, very big and bulky, and I don't know that that would be hideable as much as with regular yarn. the other thing that I wanted to share with you, because I always share my, whether they're mistakes or bad choices, I always share what's gone wrong with my work. So as we all know, when you do a turning chain on a single crochet row, you get kind of this scallopy kind of edge because that single turning chain kind of jets out a little bit. You can see it really good here. And so what I started to do was I thought to myself, I'm actually going to go into the turning chain so that it would square off my edge a little bit, which I liked how it was doing, as you can see here. But then what I had to do was skip the last stitch and go into the turning chain, and then it left a gaping hole in each row. So unless you wanted to do that all the way along and try to get more of a straight edge, here's where it looks better. Oh my God, this thing is so heavy. So here's like this straight edge, and then here's where you can see I changed to go back to, you know, crocheting in the stitches and not in the turning chain. So here's where I was doing the turning chain, and then there's that big old gaping hole. You could totally see it on this side. So I wished I had either stayed doing that and then the hole doesn't matter, or not even start doing that. But by the time I decided to go ahead and do this, I would have had to frog all that out. And this yarn was not really frog friendly. So, oh my God, I'm sweating so bad from this blanket. It's so heavy. I really did enjoy using the yarn for a change to do something different, you know, but I don't know what you could use that yarn for, because it's really too nice to be like a mat or a dog blanket or something like that. You can't wash wool, you know, you'd have to hand wash it and lay it flat every time. So giving it to an animal doesn't make sense. Walking on it like a mat doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know what's going to happen with this. I don't know what's going to happen with this, but it really is pretty. And I'm glad that I used it. Cleared out some space on my cubby. You know, I'll have these two left, but that takes up a whole lot less space than the 6 of them did. But it's a really, I really like how it's working out. You know, I might decide to do some other, normally I hate a single crochet. You guys know that. But in this case, it really looks really good. You know, the yarn is so big, and like I say, it took me like maybe an hour to go through a whole skein, to do a whole thing. And that's some hard work on your hands. And initially it was a little bit funky. I couldn't really get my spacing right, but once I got a rhythm going, it went very, very smoothly. So I was pleased with how that progressed. You know, the skill, you got to practice a little bit. If you're doing something you never did before, you're not going to be fantastic out of it right out of the gate. So a couple of things that I didn't mention about this yarn when I was recording the rest of the video is just how piece chunky kind of things like this might happen. And then I don't know what to do, because if you pull it away too much, you're going to really break down the integrity of the strand, and then it might break easily. If you try to, like, I spend a lot of time trying to like retwist the yarn, because it does have a roving feature, so it would get really, really tightly wound like this and be really kind of nice to work with. And then it would get to a big section where it was just super fat and super wide and not twisted up at all. So take that as you will. On some sections, I kind of spent time trying to wind it a little bit tighter through some stitches, and other times I just said forget about it. So if you do pull it on it too tight, you will totally tear it. So you've got to really kind of be a little bit gentle as you can while you're doing this. But I'm going to go ahead and take it out of ink and put it on my Swift now. So tension is really one of the things that is going to take the most practice. And so I don't know if you want to do that on a different project before you get to making what you're really going to make. But that was really, getting your tension was very difficult for me for this. So good luck to you on that. But otherwise you just treat it just like you would yarn that you're going to crochet with. You put a slip stitch on. All right. And then you need to maintain this length on each of your little chains. And that seems to be the problem with how the tension is not working out. Whoops, that's my tail. So just go ahead and pull the yarn through to make your next chain, and pull the yarn through to make your next chain, and pull the yarn through to make your next chain. So if you stop and kind of mess with these a little bit as you go to sort of, I did that in the beginning to kind of get the feel of it, but otherwise you just continue to pull the working yarn through just like you would with your crochet hook. Your fingers are your crochet hook, and you just pull through and pull through and pull through for as long as you want your project to be. And then just like with regular crochet, you've got, you know, a turning chain, and then you're going to go into the second chain from the hook. So here's the first chain, and then here's the second chain, and you just reach through there. And you can do the pinch method and pull through if that works for you. I was just using my finger to pull the yarn through like this. And then you've got 2 loops on your hook, just like you would with a single crochet. And then I found that it helped to pinch and pull this off my finger to put my thumb through. And that's where I would pull my working yarn through. So I'm kind of doing this slow and funky. And as usual on a chain, your, you know, first row gets a little bit wonky, but there is your first single crochet. So I'm going to put my fingers back into my working loop, and here's the next chain. So I'm just going to go into that and pull my my working yarn through. I've got my 2 loops on my finger hook. I'm going to pull these away and let my thumb come through and pull that through to make another single crochet. So go ahead and continue that across your little chain to make as many single crochets as you've got chains. And see, here's where you've, you know, if it's kind of a fuzzier piece, it's a little bit hard to know where one strand stops and the next one begins. So just kind of be careful with the yarn if you've got something like this that's a little bit fuzzy and roaming and all that good stuff. I've got a couple more to do here. All right. And last one. Okay. So it might be a little bit wonky, but that is what you would be looking like as your first row. And now you can see it really just does look like single crochets all the way. If you want to mark your last or your first chain, or your first stitch, I should say, just like you would on a regular crochet pattern, I kind of suggested in this case because, like you saw what I was working with, I couldn't decide whether I was going to go into that turning chain or into that stitch. So I don't really know that our regular stitch marker is going to work. We can try, you know, you can certainly mark part of it like that if you'd like to. Or if you don't have stitch markers, or you would prefer to pull through on just a, you know, scrap of yarn, and that way you just know which one is your last chain for sure. So from your last stitch, you're going to pull through for a chain, a turning chain, and this part got fiddly for me just about every row, I'm not going to lie. You got to get a turning chain in there that's not too big. So I kind of pull this a little bit smaller, and then pull through and kind of mess with that a little bit. So then you turn just like you would normally and crochet into that same stitch. So here's what the work looks like, and you got to dig your fingers all the way through both of those loops to pull your chain or your loop through, pull your yarn through. And then this is where I really began to move that off my thumb to be able to do my first single crochet. So there's one. And between the tension being a little bit irregular maybe, and the roving and the color changing, it's a really interesting look as you go. But as you can see by mine, you know, even though I began the same way I'm kind of beginning now. It's a little bit funky. By the time you get going, it really sort of starts to feel like a rhythm. And if you want to pull these up a little bit more and have them a little bit more loosey-goosey so that it's a little bit easier to dig through, that's certainly an option. That's sort of one of those things that's just not me. That's why I don't like a puff stitch or an elongated, you know, double crochet when you go down into the rows below and then you have to pull the yarn up tall. That's not my cup of tea. So I'm kind of a tight stitch girl, and that's just how my work goes. So here you can just see how I'm working with it. And then there's that last stitch, as you normally would take out your stitch marker. Put your stitch in there. Sometimes I really had to work it. Whoops, see, you got to be really careful. You got to be really, really careful. With this yarn anyway, I know that, you know, there are other 7s out there that you could do this with that are more like a regular yarn and not so kind of loosey like this. I don't know what to call this stuff. It really looks like batting to me, but whatever. So there you go. See, you can see how much better this next row looks than your first one, because your first one's just kind of hard to get your fingers going and stuff like that. So and then working with a chain is always fiddly. So here is, you know, once I get going a little bit better, that's how that's going to look. So I didn't replace my marker, as you can see here, but I know I've got 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And after I did that back and forth in this one, I thought I had an extra stitch because, well, I did have an extra stitch at one point because I ended up stitching into that space that I had been skipping. So then I had, this was 25 chains, and so then I ended up with 26. That's how I knew just to go back to my old self and count, because on something this big, with your stitches being this big, it doesn't take that long to count across 25 stitches of a project each row. So that's all you do, is you keep on going. Just get that chain put on there, and then right into the first stitch like you normally would. Alrighty guys, I suggest you take a break between hanks because, like I said, my hand really hurts right now. That was last night. So getting the video out to you as quickly as I can because we got plans today. Alrighty guys, there you go. Good luck with that. Let me know how it goes. If you guys get any jumbo yarn like this, whether it's Willow's Grandeur or some other type of yarn, let me know about it down in the comments. Let us know how that went for you. I don't ever claim to reinvent the wheel. I just want to show you guys what I've been working on and maybe hopefully save you some headache or teach you some little tips and tricks along the way as I've been going. So thanks for sitting with me today. I hope you have a wonderfully blessed day, and please come back and see me again. Thank you. Bye-bye.